get the meeting on the way. The meeting tonight, okay, so, okay. Stuck in a loop. I'm just waiting for the Wi-Fi to connect, or the live streaming to connect. Yep, we're good to go. Remind everyone that the meetings are live streamed, and you can watch it tonight live, or you can tune in later and watch it by going to our website and clicking on the appropriate meeting. I will remind everyone tonight that we have we'll keep this agenda fairly tight because we have a strategic planning session to do afterwards, and we would like to be out of here before midnight, which would be really good. So, all right, before the open session, we had a closed meeting, which was moved by Councillor McCann and seconded by Councillor Borneman. Pursuant to Section 239(2) and 3 of the Municipal Act SO 2001 C25 as amended, Council of the Corporation of the Town of Parry Sound moved to a meeting closed to the public in order to address matters pertaining to B. Personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, Director of Public Works selection and employment agreement. C. A proposed or pending acquisition of or disposition of land for municipal or local board purposes, wellness center and pool cost sharing negotiations. D. Labor relations or employee negotiations, Director of Public Works selection and employment agreement. And N. A position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, wellness center, and pool cost sharing negotiations. That was carried. The meeting was held. Any additions or prioritization of the agenda? Nope. Okay. Mover and seconder for the agenda. Councillor McCann, Councillor Burden. The council agenda for December 17th, 2019 be approved as circulated. All in favor? That's carried. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Seeing none. Let's see. Mover and seconder for the minutes. Councillor Horn and Councillor Keith, that the minutes of the regular council meeting held December 3rd, 2019 be approved as circulated. Any discussion on those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Questions of staff? Councillor Keith.
Yes, first is a question for Mr. Brown, and it breaks my heart that it'll be the last time, Mr. Brown, I guess, that I'll be asking you unless we have an emergency meeting. And that would be, tonight I was going by the intersection of Isabel and Joseph Street, and I was talking to a couple of the fellows that were working on the traffic lights as shipmen. And would you be able to tell the public, probably better than I, as to what they were doing there and what great things we are expecting to happen?
Through your worship, to clarify, this is the intersection near the high school? Yeah, we, as I mentioned a couple of council meetings ago, we are involved with replacing some of the infrastructure, the electronics on a lot of our lights in town. And we've done quite a bit of work as far as replacing the sensors in the ground with cameras. And we had a little bit of money left over in the budget, but not enough to install another camera. But we had enough money to install the audible signal buttons at another intersection. And it was suggested that we install them at the intersection of Church and Isabella, right near the high school. So they have been installed. I believe they're being tested right now, and hopefully before the end of this year, they'll be up and running 100%. So there'll be the audible signals for accessibility, similar to what we have at the intersection of James and Seguin Street.
And one other comment, and that is just in reference to if anybody has time and they get themselves up to the museum area and they go by the ranger cabin and the museum, it's just beautiful, the Christmas lights there. I would suspect Mrs. Bossert probably had something also to do with as well as many other volunteers, and getting that all well lit so it looks really lovely. So if you want to see another Christmas scene, go up there because it's very nice.
Councillor McCann?
Thank you. I guess this probably be for Mr. Brown. A few weeks back, we had a deputation here when young Mr. McDonald had made a deputation requesting a lower speed limit on Riverdale. It is Riverdale. Riverside, right, okay. And so, and I know that involves a lot in terms of changing the bylaws and doing the studies and such. I was in another town and drove through a neighborhood where I saw some very decorative signs that said, please watch, our children are at play. And I thought, how difficult would it be for any particular neighborhood to incorporate such signs in their neighborhood along their respective streets to accommodate this sort of thing. I think if I'm driving, I'm more likely to pay attention to a sign that says kids are at play rather than another speed limit sign, which people just seem to voluntarily ignore.
Mr. Brown?
Through your worship, a lot of municipalities have started to get rid of those particular signs because it implies that children are allowed to play on the street. So you have to be cognizant of the fact that if you're going to sign that, then you may be creating a bit of a liability to the municipality. I would suggest that we start we purchase one of those speed limit flashing signs. And we wanted to do that this year, but we just didn't have it in the budget. I'm hopeful that it's going to be in the 2020 budget. That we can have this sign that's solar powered that we can install in different locations. We can move it around, and hopefully that will slow the traffic down. It's unfortunate that people still like to drive too fast even when it's well signed, and I'm not sure how to resolve that other than to inform the OPP, suggest to the public that they contact the OPP. We've done a lot of research as far as our traffic counter in certain areas as well, which also identifies the speed of vehicles. Every time that's done, we ship that immediately to the OPP. So they're very well aware of the speeding, the times, the dates. It goes right down to the second of when the speeders went through. So we keep them posted as best we can. But I think that municipalities should be careful of how we sign streets to ensure that we don't become liable.
Well, I never thought of it from that angle, and that is interesting, an interesting point. So I wonder maybe if we could consider that in the budget then for 2020.
Is there a seconder for the consideration? Councillor Bachman? Any discussion on the direction? All in favor? It's carried, so we'll consider that in the budget. Any further questions of staff? Councillor Borneman?
I see Miss McNamara way back there at the back. I'm hoping she can come forward and tell us what she's got planned for both the outdoor rink and what kind of schedule she has for public skating at the Bobby or through the Christmas holidays.
Through your worship, work at Kinsman Park, we need Mother Nature to cooperate a little bit better than what she is now. The forecast is only looking for 2 days of cold in the coming weeks, so we have to wait to have a few more days of a cold stretch there before we can start making ice out there. As soon as the rink is ready to go, all the information will be posted on the town website, and I'm sure council will receive an email update on that as well. In terms of skating over the holidays, if anybody wants to visit the town website, a full public skating schedule is posted there, generously sponsored by Tim Hortons as well as the town of Parry Sound.
Any further questions? No. I guess question for Mr. Brown, but it might also be for Chief Thompson as well. I thought when Councillor McCann was asking about the speed limit on Riverdale was, are we considering looking at lowering the speeds in any other locations within the town? Because we did have another request about Wabick Street, and we've had a request about Riverdale. Has this been discussed or consideration for 2020?
Through your worship, the Wabick Street, we installed 50-kilometer-an-hour signs, which was identified as somebody thought they were missing, but they were actually taken down before the construction. So they have been reinstalled. We will be putting our traffic counter out there shortly just to see what the speeds are. But as you know, as soon as you put new asphalt down, the people like to go a lot faster. With regards to Riverdale, I would like to suggest that that be considered in the 2020, not necessarily budget deliberations, because it really isn't that expensive, but for the new director of public works to deal with. Unfortunately, I was unable to complete that task in 2019, and I hope that the deputation person forgives me for not getting it done in time.
Well, you had other things on your plate, that's for sure. So maybe there might be some direction then from council on maybe to look at both Wabick Street and Riverdale. Councillor Keith? Is there a seconder? Councillor McCann? Any discussion on taking a look at that direction for 2020? All in favor? That's good. Already creating work. Any further questions of staff? Nope. Okay. Correspondence, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just prior to correspondence, I was asked if the director, the fire chief, could have a look again and try to fix the the technical, so that when the correspondence is done, the deputations can proceed. We're having some trouble with that technical part. There are 2 items of correspondence on the agenda and 1 addition. The first 2 items relate to funding requests. The first one from Linda Taylor, Program Director of the West Parry Sound Community Support Services, with the 2020 funding request for those services and some detail provided on the programs provided. The second item is from Nadine Hammond. She's the Curator Manager of the West Parry Sound District Museum, also with a detailed update on the museum's activities and a 2020 funding request. Third item that came in today and was circulated previously to Mayor and Council is from Reeve Burt Liberance of the Township of the Archipelago. It is a copy of a letter and resolution addressed to the Minister of Long-Term Care, Marilee Fullerton, with a request or with their suggestion of supporting an Ontario health team to cover the whole Parry Sound district. And that resolution and letter is being circulated to area municipalities for consideration. And that's the correspondence.
Okay, thank you. So we come to the deputations portions of tonight's meeting. We had 2 deputations canceled, and so we're going to Chris Pettinger and Dan DiNicolo with regard to the Founders Circle. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good evening, Your Worship. Thank you, councillors, for hosting us this evening. I am Chris Pettinger, co-founder of Trestle Brewing Company and chairperson of the 2019-2020 Parry Sound Area Founders Circle.
And thank you for having us. I'm Dan Nicola from 18 James Street, and I'm the chair of the marketing committee for the Parry Sound Area Founders Circle.
We are here to bring you good tidings tonight from the Parry Sound Area Founders Circle. You're up, bud.
Okay, so I think we'll get started by just kind of giving you an overview of what the Parry Sound Area Founders Circle is. So established in October 2019, Parry Sound Area Founders Circle is a group of business and community leaders who share the belief that entrepreneurism and innovation are essential to meaningful local growth and sustainable development. They move that belief into action by providing up-and-coming ventures with direct financial support through a competitive award program and opportunities to network with established mentors. Each founder contributes $1,000 to the circle. The funds are used to provide no-strings-attached prizes to startups and existing businesses selected by the founders according to the criteria that they establish. Parry Sound Muskoka Community Network supports the meetings of the founders and covers the costs of an annual gala event known as the Impact Awards, at which the Entrepreneurship Prize winners are announced. Each founder is free to choose his or her level of involvement. Some founders take on active roles, and others simply support the work through their financial contribution. Membership in the Parry Sound Area Founders Circle is open to all individuals and businesses living and/or operating in the Parry Sound area. In addition to the cash prize, new businesses derive great benefit from becoming part of the local support network. Founders benefit from the opportunity to contribute to local growth and development, to network with like-minded members of the community, and most importantly, to give back.
This project, as Dan mentioned, is supported by Parry Sound Muskoka Community Networks, who is in turn supported by FedNor. Being a founder means you're contributing $1,000 from your business or personal assets, and you have a voice and a vote in the process of choosing the new and best business idea in the Parry Sound area. We are happy to report that we currently have 32 founders confirmed, the town of Parry Sound being one, RBC Foundation, Paul Schofield, Lakeland Holdings, Ritchie Insurance, Parry Sound Insurance, Trestle Brewing Company, 18 James Street, Claudette Boyd, Scotiabank Parry Sound, Boston Pizza Parry Sound, the Parry Sound Area Community Business Development Center, the Rotary Club of Parry Sound, InExpress Canada, Parry Sound Fuels, Crofters Foods Limited, Orr's Fine Meats, William Beatty Company, Tamarack North, Torrance Funeral Homes, Georgian Bay Whole Foods, Oldham Law Firm, Ted Scott, Bayshore Financial, Air Rider Hovercraft International, Hall Construction, Adam Brothers Construction, Connor Industries, CIBC Parry Sound, and Peter Istvan Photography.
So some of the key dates associated with Founders Circle. In short order, once we kind of get through the Christmas season, you'll see application process opening. So that's going to happen via our website and with information provided via our Instagram feed and our Facebook page. So applications open on January the 1st and they close on March the 1st, 2020. The decision on who the winners are happens after the closing period, and the decision is made by a vote of the founders. There's actually 3 different awards, and I'll get into those shortly. And those awards will culminate at the Impact Awards that are held at the JW Marriott that's scheduled for April 23rd, 2020. So that should be a very significant event this year. I know it was a great event last year. So as part of our process in our meetings, before taking in applications, we obviously had to decide on what the prizes would be for this year. So for 2020, the Parry Sound Area Founders Circle will be sponsoring 3 different awards. So one of the things that we've decided to take on is an award in conjunction with the high school. So this will be the Parry Sound High School Award, and this is being sponsored by RBC Financial. And that award, is that confirmed yet, the amount? No, we haven't. So the award amount to be confirmed, but it'll still be significant. As far as the Founders Area Awards for entrepreneurs, there's a second place award to be granted in the amount of $5,000 and a grand prize award of $10,000. So for this year, $15,000 to be allocated, with the rest of the money held in reserves to work towards next year. The 2019-2020 Founders Circle culminates at the Impact Awards, which will be a red carpet event held at the JW Marriott on April 23rd, as outlined.
It's important to note that the Circle is still accepting new founders until December 31st this year for this round, and then next year there'll be a new round starting up. We hope that all the existing founders will continue to be founders, and that we can grow this project in the following incarnation, 2020, 2021. Tonight we ask kindly, if you would, through the town of Parry Sound, to support this project further by putting up all the relevant information we'll provide you on the town of Parry Sound website, and helping us broadcast far and wide about this project, including key dates on the town's social media feeds. And if you know of any other founders out there or potential founders, please solicit them on our behalf, and point them in our direction, or through CAO Harris to support this very worthy initiative. That's all we have for you tonight, Your Worship.
Wonderful. Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Horn.
Thank you for your presentation, gentlemen. Well done. Could you explain the geographic area that you're looking at specifically for the Parry Sound area? So businesses, entrepreneurs know that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So this has been a topic of debate at our Founder Circle meetings about what the catchment area is. And it hasn't been entirely firmed up yet, but we wanted to be inclusive and not exclusive. So we chose the name Parry Sound Area Founder Circle. We have members from the east side of the district, but most of the founders are focused and concentrated in this area. It's important to note as well that CAO Harris has reached out to Shawnee First Nation and to Wissahickon as well, and to garner involvement and participation from them. And this is an inclusive project, but to put a geographic boundary on it, essentially West Parry Sound is kind of what we're looking at this point in time.
Very good. Councillor Borneman.
I just want to congratulate these fellows and Mr. Harris for pulling this together. I've been attending these events and have brought this to council's attention, but as I recall, the first year it was tried in Muskoka, they struggled to get 10 sponsors, so to get 32 in a smaller, less affluent area is really a terrific achievement in my mind, and I think it will serve the community well going forward. So congratulations on your efforts here, fellas.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Comments? Nope. I'll wrap it up by saying thank you very much. I think it's a wonderful idea, and I applaud your efforts for what you're doing and all of the founders for participating. And we certainly hope that this grows and keeps going. So thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Well, that was the wrap for our scheduled deputations. I will give opportunity for someone, if they have a very quick deputation, to come forward and keep it brief and limited. So come forward, state your name.
Ron Jenkins, and it's regarding with the sidewalks. Like I asked, you guys said you're going to make a committee. No one got back to me on it.
My guess is that at this present time, no one's had time to do that. So we'll have to take a look for 2020 to do that. Mr. Harris, has there been any staff discussions yet as to the AODA committee? Citizens group?
Through the mayor, yes, there's been discussion at the staff level. Our HR coordinator is going to take the lead on it. One of the things that she's researching is what are committee terms of reference, what do other municipalities have in place. We don't want to reinvent the wheel, so the first step is to see how it's organized in other communities. And you're correct, it'll be the early part of 2020 that we'll be come back with a recommendation to this, to council.
Okay. And the second one is, when are your sidewalks are going to be fixed? Because I just broke a wheel.
Well, that can't happen in the wintertime. We have difficulty doing that. There will be discussion in the budget, okay, as to what sidewalks will be repaired for 2020. And we will, there will be a number of discussions around that. What's going to be replaced, what's going to be repaired, and any new construction that might happen to come along as well. But until we get into the budget process, that'll be discussed. That's as much as I can tell you right now.
Okay, because I just wondering, because like people before me that has a wheelchair came to this committee and they got the same answer, and that didn't happen and the committee never happened.
What, we will be proceeding with this. We have to move at a certain pace. There are things that we have to do to carry this through. I will be very honest, we cannot replace every sidewalk in the town of Parry Sound. That is financially impossible to do because that would raise the taxes so high that we would have people screaming.
Well, people did pay their taxes in the land taxes to keep the sidewalks and the roads maintained.
So we will be,
So you're telling me you couldn't get that money and use that? Or are you using it for something else?
this is really, for deputations, is not about comments back and forth because I'm not going to get into a discussion with you here on that.
Okay,
think,
where can I do that then?
That would
You're
be,
all here, so it's the best that I can do this in front of all yous.
you can ask your questions,
Mhm.
which you have asked,
Mhm.
and then we'll have to have someone get back to you on that. But there will be discussions with regard, for your information and the public's information, there will be discussions on sidewalks within the town of Parry Sound. But you have to consider, or also realize, we have more than just sidewalks that we have to think about. There are a number of different things that we have to consider during the budget, and not everyone gets exactly what they want, and I'll be very honest about that, because we have a lot to think about. And there is the concern about taxes within the community, and that the public doesn't want to see them raised on a very significant amount. So we need to consider that because we have inflation that we also have to deal with as well. So there will be some conversations at budget time with regard to this, but until then, I don't think anyone here around the table or any of the staff could tell you exactly what we're going to fix at the moment until we take a good hard look at the budget. So if you have concerns that of certain areas that you want to let us know, make sure that you report that to staff so that they can relay that to Public Works so that that can be taken a look at.
Well, like, I did mention that 2 meetings ago.
Yep.
And I don't see anybody doing anything or asked.
I'm going to ask you right now, my question to you is, what do you expect?
What do I expect?
Yep.
I respect that you make a commitment in saying, yes, we will fix the sidewalks. Not just, oh, are we going to look on it and see because there's priorities somewhere else.
There are priorities. We
Yeah.
have an asset management plan that we
But
have to look at.
isn't
I
the
don't want to
sidewalks
belabor this
isn't
anymore.
sidewalks only, like, isn't that important? Because I'm breaking wheels. I can't afford to keep buying wheels for my wheelchair.
Okay, I hear you.
So, like, you're going to be paying. The town of Parry Sound will be paying for my fix of my wheelchair or anybody else.
Well, I would suggest that you put the areas of concern in, which you already have mentioned, I think some of them, if you've got other areas, and it'll be looked at. Other than that, that's as much of a promise that I can give you, that they will be looked at, and we will be discussing sidewalks during the budget. So if you don't have any other questions with related to this, or something different that you want to ask a question about,
Yeah, I do.
our deputation is done for tonight.
Well, I do have one question. It's for Mr. Brown, is that the sidewalk or the steps in front of 5149 William Street. He came over, I fell, and I got 16 staples in my arm because I fell down those stairs. There's been complaints about those steps, and I asked for railing to walk, so that you could walk yourself down. Mr. Brown came over when my worker called the city, and he came over and he looked like this, moved his sunglasses, puts them back on, gets in his car. And nothing happened. And that's going on 2 years.
Okay. Well, thank you for bringing that up. It has been documented. That's the first I've heard of it. So we will, it has been mentioned, so it has been recorded.
Okay,
Thank you for your deputation.
thank you.
Reports. Councillor Borneman.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've been pretty active the last couple of weeks. The 5th and the 9th, I attended interviews with respect to the new Director of Public Works. December 6th was the monthly airport meeting, at which time we reviewed the progress for the project. We met again on the 10th to finalize some change orders to that contract with respect to wells, septics, and fire ponds. We're still hopeful of getting some of this work done before freeze up. But we had to ensure that the money was committed prior to the end of the year. December 12th, I, along with Councillor Burden, tried to attend a meeting at the Parry Sound Industrial Park Board, but it was postponed due to a lack of quorum. And in the past 10 days, I've attended 3 HR committee meetings at Belvedere Heights in our efforts to recruit and hire a replacement chief executive officer. Hopefully this will be resolved at tomorrow's board meeting. That's my report, other than to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a happy and safe New Year, and hopefully a very prosperous 2020.
Thank you very much. Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, fellow council, staff, and people of Parry Sound. A few items to report on. We heard in tonight's correspondence that Linda Taylor, the program director from the West Parry Sound Community Support Services, has a request in for funding in the new year, and I understand she'll be making a deputation in January to speak more about what they do. I had the opportunity to help out this year with the program Be a Santa to a Senior program. This is the 8th year for it. Overwhelming generosity from folks in the area has shone through brightly here. Seniors adopted by the program will benefit by getting a wonderful gift bag, and it will be filled with anything from toiletries to toques, mitts, gloves, comforters, various soaps, shaving cream, puzzles, the long reach grabbers, flashlights, batteries, anything that you can imagine. And so there are a number of seniors out there who are lonely or don't have the greatest of means, and this will make sure that they get a visit and a nice gift packed for Christmas from the community. So thank you to everyone who participated and donated in that very worthwhile event. 125 seniors are benefiting from the program this year. Want to say that on Saturday, December 15th or 14th, I had the honor of attending a 90th birthday celebration for Shirley Hanna of Parry Sound. Her husband Ray and daughters, along with friends, tried to keep it a secret, but I think Shirley eventually figured it out. Tomorrow, the 18th, is her actual 90th birthday, so we wish her all the best. And family from near and far gathered at the Seguin Seniors Drop-In Center on Saturday afternoon to greet her. And Shirley has invited everyone back for her 100th birthday party, and she means it. She intends to be there. The Saturday, December 14th, my wife and I attended the West Perry Sound Health Center Christmas Dinner and Long Service Awards. This year, administration paid tribute to the EHR team, EHR meaning Electronic Health Records, for their work on instituting the online records system. This involved a great deal of time, dedication, and manpower, and congratulations to all the team for this wonderful initiative, and we're certainly moving forward with today's technology at the health center. The Knights of Columbus had their annual turkey dinner at St. Peter's then on Sunday the 15th, and we attended that. Santa himself surprised the kids with a visit and with gifts for all. This morning, December 17th, along with Councillor Vanessa Backman, I attended the Parry Sound Public Library Board meeting, and we finalized, adopted our budget for next year. The Treasurer's report was received for November of this year. We're going to be embarking on pay equity early in 2020. And we talked about inventory management, discussed other housekeeping matters, and the library, as you know, has been a very busy facility, and they had a lot of people through the doors this year, and looking forward to a very prosperous and successful new year. And we want to thank those who've supported the library financially. They've done very, very well in collecting donations. One gentleman, an older fellow, came in one day and put $1,000 on the table and said, "My grandchildren love the library." And so that's the kind of support that motivates us and keeps us going. So thank you for that. And finally, on behalf of my wife Josie and myself, I'd like to take this opportunity to wish Mayor, fellow councillors, town administration and staff, and the people of Parry Sound a very Merry Christmas. Do have a safe and wonderful time, and best wishes for happiness and health in the new year. And that's my report, and thank you.
Good evening. My report is very short this evening, as I was away last week and was unable to attend the cancelled industrial park meeting. However, as Councillor McCann did mention, I did attend the library board meeting this morning. Regarding the visitations, it was very busy, and the numbers are at 76,000 people came through the doors last year, and that is spectacular. I'd also like to just say a congratulations to a staff at the library, Selena Martins, of 10 years service. So we celebrated, gave her a little gift today. And as Councillor McCann mentioned, we did approve our budget. And that is my report for this evening. Thank you. Happy holidays.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Goodbye, Mr. Brown. I wish you luck in the next phase of your life, the next chapter. I'm sure it'll be as exciting as the past few years here at the town of Parry Sound. Your leadership in terms of infrastructure improvement in the town of Parry Sound has been fantastic. You can look around the town and see the development that is happening, and because of your leadership, in terms of that infrastructure, in terms of the water treatment plant, the sewage treatment plant, has made that possible. So I think on behalf of this council, we certainly have appreciated your work, your commitment, and your dedication the last few years. Congratulations. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, fellow councillors, staff, and the public. My activities, December 6th, I attended the Women's Recognition Ceremony in respect to violence, and there was approximately 24 people that attended that ceremony, and I'm hoping next year, seeing it's such an important issue and there's so much abuse that goes on, there will be a greater turnout. I also attended the airport Christmas open house. Furthermore, I attended 2 meetings in respect to the subcommittee interviews for the next Director of Operations. I attended the town Christmas party, and I was also involved in the last few months where there was a competition, not that I entered to win a prize, but after the fact, shall we say, where you wore a t-shirt that said, my Parry Sound on it to show community strength, and I think it's better marketing for our community. I was also a radio receptionist for Moose FM Radio, Salvation Army Radiothon, and also Counselor Borneman was there too. So evidently, two of us were helping out that cause. I attended an OPP meeting to discuss the operations. The Parry Sound Area Planning Board was canceled, so it doesn't make it financially efficient for us if there isn't enough consents at the time to be examined. So we passed on that meeting. I will be attending the Salvation Army's Christmas Kettle. You'll see me out the rest of this week and part of next week, dancing around and ringing bells or something. So I'm hoping that it will, again, assist for the cause because it certainly helps out our community. And the last thing I would say in reference to not only may everybody have a lovely Christmas and a Happy New Year, I would say, Mr. Brown, if you get really lonesome and you wonder what you want to do in reference to, shall I look at a council meeting? Remember, Kojiko has it on a couple of times a week. So you just take your chips and you watch and you can freely comment. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had several meetings scheduled last week, but the District Social Services Board meeting was canceled due to poor weather forecast, and the Downtown Business Association meeting was canceled due to bad weather, and as Councilor Borneman mentioned, the Industrial Park Board meeting was unable to proceed due to a lack of a quorum, so my busy week wasn't so busy after all. I did also attend the hiring committee meetings here on the 5th and the 9th to find a replacement for Mr. Brown. I also helped out at the Salvation Army Radiothon. I did a couple of shifts on November 5th and 6th, answering phones and taking pledges. Unfortunately, the funds raised fell short of their goal, but their hope is that the wonderful people of Parry Sound and area will come through in other ways to help them with the great work they do, especially at this time of year. I would like to wish all of you who celebrate Christmas a very Merry Christmas, and anyone or everyone a very prosperous and Happy New Year. And I assure you that this mayor and council and all of the staff will continue working hard to do what we can to make 2020 a great year here in Parry Sound. And that's my report.
Thank you. I guess this question is for Mr. Brown then. So I've read the report, and I've got a question or first and then a comment. These check valves that are required for the pumps, are they compulsory, or is it something that that's just something extraordinary that somebody might add on to their system for better protection?
Through your worship, I can't answer part of that question because it's a building code issue. And building code isn't under my purview. But I will say that any pumping station that we install, be it large or small, there is always a check valve system. Every one of our pumping stations has a check valve. So that's not unusual to put check valves in a pumping station.
Okay, so with respect to what's in the report, and this is a tough one to move forward on, I'd like to suggest maybe that that we look at this again in the new year, with the idea of coming back with some sort of compromise, maybe splitting the cost or something. The thing is that something happened when our pipe froze, and I'm just hoping that we can be accommodating in some way. Churches like this one certainly do a lot for the community, and so I'm hoping there might be some regard for that, and I was hoping that we could send staff back to look at this again in the new year.
I just want to say I want to support this. I'm in and out of the building quite frequently, and watching the staff clean the place with this machine and then to watching them do it with a hand mop, it's like a 10-to-1 ratio, not to mention the strain and physical part of it. So I think this is money well spent.
Yes, my comment is along the same line. In the last couple of days, when I've watched them cleaning this arena by hand, I just think those days have kind of come and gone. And I think what we need to also remember, I've always been proud of when I go in the arena, what a wonderful staff, what the cleaning ability of our staff. I have been in other arenas. I'm sure there's others have been in them a lot more than me, but I am very impressed about how clean our arena is. And since this machine has broke down and I see the work and just trying to keep it up near, it just doesn't compare. And I think this is really good marketing of our community when we have such a spotless arena, because it goes back, people talk about other places, it's something we can really be proud of. So certainly I think we need to get behind this 100%. Thank you.
I'd like to see if Stephanie could just explain how this process went and how we're moving forward, please.
Okay. So I was hoping that the insurer would be here today to talk about what's going on in the industry, but they have provided me with a couple of comments. So in the market, they're moving to a hard market cycle, which is where supply is high and insurers are being more choosy about who they're going to cover. Examples of where businesses that are affected by this are municipalities, condominiums, and manufacturing. So we've been provided with statistics that show that 15% is the average premium increase municipalities are incurring. So this proposal is a 17% increase, and that amounts to $51,601. So in examining the proposal, I looked at the possibility of increasing the liability and errors and omissions deductible from $10,000 to $25,000, and some other options. But in examining claims history, if we were to do that, we could risk actually incurring more costs than the costs of the premium savings, which would only be approximately $16,500. So based on even just last year's history alone, our costs might increase more than that amount if we were to do that. So that's not the recommendation at this time. Also, they provided us with the recommendation that municipality our size, it's acceptable to have a deductible of around $10,000 for these types of claims. So typically that would change based on the size of the municipality and size of claims that occur. Also, if I look at the current proposal and compare that to the proposals that we received at the time that we did the RFP, if the other proponents that provide a proposal, if their cost was increased by just a 2% inflation per year from the time that it happened, this proposal would still be a good value, so it would be below who was the second proponent at that time. So that proposal was for the 2018 insurance year. Yeah. Does anybody have any more questions, or?
When do you expect we might go to market with this contract in the near future?
So I would recommend that we look at that for the 2020 to 2021 year, and that's because where we are falling with the current proposal price is just slightly below the second bidder at the time. So it would probably be advantageous to go for the next insurance period.
Thank you, Stephanie.
You're welcome.
So I guess I'm wondering if we were going with an extended contract, is there any kind of a break in price for going for 2 or maybe 3 years? That's still a hefty increase regardless.
So through you, Mr. Mayor. So at this time, this is just a 1-year renewal period. So at the time that we did do the request for proposal, we had only done it for a 1-year period, and then we renew each year. We could have a look at whether it would be advantageous to go for more than a 1-year period. It's hard to anticipate how that would affect us, though, whether our claims experience is going up or whether our claims experience is going down, because you're not really sure whether you would get an advantage to that, because if your claims go down, then you're probably not getting an advantage over the long term from doing that. But plus, right now, insurance prices are high because of the industry and the hard market, they're saying. So right now, we don't have the advantage of prices being low to start with, but who knows where we're going to be next time, like next time we're getting into this at the end of this year. So we can look at that.
Is that when our coverage expires then, the end of this year?
So this Proposal is to renew coverage from December 15th of 2019 to December 15th, 2020. So right now, they're bridging our coverage until the meeting and we can get this passed. So next year would be December 15th, 2020 that we could go out to RFP for.
That's a good idea. Thank you.
again, as I said earlier before the break, we have some people here from Red Brick Communications. We have Andrea Montgomery and Steph Locke. And so I'm going to turn it over to our CAO, Mr. Harris, for some comments, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't want to take too long, but I just want to remind everybody why we're here this evening. This fall, the town undertook an exercise to update its strategic plan and as a guide for how we move forward. The priorities that are set out in the plan will set a direction and guide the town's decision-making well into the future. And as the mayor mentioned, to assist the town with this work, the town engaged Red Brick Communications, and they've been busy over the last number of weeks doing a lot of community consultation. I'd like to thank Dave Thompson. He's been the town connection with Red Brick over the last number of weeks as well, and appreciate his support in getting us to this point. Andrea is the Vice President of Red Brick Communications. She's going to provide us with an update from the various consultation that's taken place. We didn't rely on any one form of consultation. We've tried to reach out through online surveys, focus groups where individuals were invited to attend. They also made a trip to the high school, and it'll be interesting what the high school students think about the town and where we need to go. And as well, there was an open house at the Bobby Orr Community Center. So lots of different ways that we've tried to solicit input from the public. And tonight, looking forward to hearing that input and how it all comes together. And the main purpose this evening is going to be followed by, we want to hear from council. So it's a workshop where after council hears the input from the public, that has been received. We want to understand where council wants to go. If there's any particular things that are omitted or what they want to see added, and then we'll be coming back in the new year with a draft plan. So at that, I'll turn it over to Andrea. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, through you, Your Worship. So thank you very much on behalf of Red Brick for having us here today and having us be a part of this process. It's such an important process for every municipality to go through, and an important one to set the foundation for where you head in the future. So we're always honored to be a part of these kind of initiatives. So tonight, what I'm going to do is I'll take you through, as CAO Harris mentioned, I'll take you through the feedback that we've received to date. We got it through a number of different methods of consultation as per your direction. And so I'll take you through what we've heard to date. But the main purpose as well is for you to not only hear what the public have said, but really this is the moment of having some input here as well to see where maybe some of the ideas and suggestions that you've got, recommendations that you have for the town, how they align with what we've heard from the public, and then get your input in terms of where you want to see some priorities set as you move forward over the next remainder of this council term through 2022, but obviously hoping that you will think well beyond that in terms of laying the foundation and a vision for the town of Parry Sound. So I believe everyone has this agenda as part of your packages. So what we're trying to do here is we've got a lot to cover in about a 2-hour period. So we'll keep moving fairly quickly through it, but want to make sure you've got enough time for the facilitator, for the piece where really you get to put your heads together and come together and think about where you want to head. So this beginning piece really is this overview on the feedback. I'll move what's the third bullet there under the first section about the design concept. We can look at that at the end, assuming that there's time for that. That'll be a quick piece. The main part, though, after I share this presentation here, is that really what we're going to do is actually break you up into 3 different groups. So we'll have 2 sets of 2 and 1 set of 3, and have you talk amongst yourselves in those particular groups, and look at, ponder what you will hear right now through the consolidated feedback, and then add in your feedback. We'll then bring that back to the full group, and one person from each of those tables will present, some of the key things you had during your discussion, and we'll come back together as a group to discuss that. My colleague Steph Locke is here to join us. He's going to be helping with capturing some of your ideas and making sure that we're not missing anything. With the plan then, as CAO Harris mentioned, that we will be consolidating then all feedback and bringing that back to you in a draft report in January. The final piece that we'll talk about at the very end, as well as we've been having conversations, and certainly internally, the management group has looked at establishing some corporate values for the town of Parry Sound to really set some kind of guidelines and ways that there are some expectations for the way that staff works with the public, the way the council works with the public, how you interact with the community, with key stakeholders, that kind of thing. So we'll bring to you 5 proposed corporate values for your feedback. In looking at the strategic plan as well, from years past, you have included a vision and mission statement in our conversations, and as we reviewed them, as Red Brick reviewed it, I made a recommendation that perhaps we plain language that a little bit better, take those vision and mission statements and simplify them into something that people will remember and can be able to grab onto and share with others. So I'll bring to you a proposed revised version of the vision and mission for your consideration as well. So we'll finish off with that. Any questions so far in terms of how we'll proceed? Excellent. Okay, so as you know, strategic plan, we mentioned already that we're looking through 2022. We're really looking to establish a common vision for everyone for the future that council can get behind. It provides the framework for decision making. And obviously we're looking to support as efficient of an organization as possible. What we've done to date in terms of the process is that we've started with a meeting. We've had a couple of meetings with the senior management here at the town to kind of understand some of their priorities, and we need to include in this process to make sure internally within the organization that we understand sort of where some of those priorities are, maybe some pieces that have been left or that are continuing on from the previous strategic plan. And then we went forward with an online survey, which was open for about 2.5 weeks or so. Dave Thompson has been fantastic in keeping on top of everything related to, I think he went well beyond his role in terms of marketing and sending out media releases to overseeing some social media pieces to looking at the website to helping me with meetings and all sorts of things. So lots of work was done there, helping set up the focus groups. So we had 2 separate sessions of focus groups. I'll get into details there. We mentioned the youth session at the high school. We had the open house. And then now today, as a final piece of the consultation process, is hearing from you. So let's talk about the focus group sessions. We had 2 different sessions, one in the afternoon, one in the evening, total of 34 participants. You can see the breakdown here. Approximately half live directly in the town, and then you can see the breakdown with business interests, 10% exclusively in the town, 80% in and out, and then 10% out of the town. So that gives you a sense of the representation of the folks that were in the room. So good discussion at both, there's no question about it. We followed actually what is fairly similar to what we'll do this evening in terms of having table discussions and starting with some small group discussions in terms of where they see priorities, and as a group what they think would be important things that are under the town's control in terms of what they can look to in terms of priorities. So those discussions happened. Those groups then reported back to the main group. We had some discussion, captured it on our flip chart papers, and then made sure that everybody in the group was comfortable with how we were proceeding. So what were the key themes that we heard? So many of you were at the open house session where we had those big boards. What we did, the open house session, was have people vote on those. The content that you saw on those boards did come out of the the focus group sessions. The reason being is that the online survey was still active as of the open house night, and it closed that evening. So we took the key themes that came out of the focus group sessions and placed them around the room. So partnerships and quality of life. This is where we're talking about things related to stakeholder partnerships, obviously, some discussion around amalgamation, and if that's something that the community wants to be considering. Included in there were pieces around quality of life, recreation programs. You'll see that come through in the themes that certainly came forward in the online survey as well. We had an interesting discussion about growth and development and then housing. So these 2 and 3 were brought together as part of our conversation. These are pieces obviously around the local economy and around what we can do to diversify businesses and help support the economic growth of the community. And we also had an interesting conversation around housing. So we talked both about affordable housing and then housing in general. The group was quite clear that the word affordable, they didn't want the word affordable to stay, both groups in fact, and really that the conversation here is around the number of housing options, making sure it's attainable for employees coming to work in Parry Sound, and that we've got varying levels of what affordability means to people. So we kept that as a general comment around housing. Pieces around marketing and promotion, which also led to tourism, kind of 2 different things, but really how do we show and be proud of Parry Sound as a town, as an area for growth, and as a place where people want to come and live and play and be. So how can we raise the profile of Parry Sound for others to attract others to come here? Not only from a tourism standpoint, that was a piece of it, but really more again related back to the growth and development piece around bringing in economy, bringing in jobs, bringing in making this a place that a central hub for this area and an economic hub for this area. And we can't do any strategic plan without talking about organizational excellence, of course. We have expectations for how the town is run. Every community has expectations for how their town and their municipality is run. And the goal, obviously, that it is as efficient as possible, and that council and town leaders are looking at that in a very serious way with every strategic plan as well. So what does that look like? So there's a little picture of some of those boards. In terms of what came forward, so in those 4 boards, which came out of these key themes, we dove down into a little bit more detail and then asked the public to vote using these stickers in terms of what they felt was the most important things to take action on. The highest priorities that came forward are related to long-term waterfront development and tourism attraction, engaging other municipalities to help Parry Sound in the area attract more businesses and as well as residents. And a big thing we heard again and again was through giving children and youth access to more recreational programs. So when you look at these boards and you see where the most number of stickers are, this is where the highest priorities were. That said, we had a relatively small attendance at the open house of 12 attendees. So this is the feedback we got from those individuals. The other pieces that came forward through that open house priorities were again working with neighboring municipalities to increase efficiencies for shared programs and services. So this does speak to this partnership piece, came back over and over again in terms of how do we work together with other communities, how formal does that look. We recognize that many of the other communities are using Parry Sound services or coming in to take advantage of what Parry Sound of the town has to offer. How do we increase and work together with them? Evaluating passenger rail connections was another one that came up. and increasing trust between the municipality and taxpayers through improved transparency and engagement in decision making. So we often see, it's not uncommon for sure, to see some form of enhanced communication from the town, enhanced, sharing how decisions are being made and being more transparent in that process. Many municipalities bring that forward as, or residents often bring that forward as something that the town is a continuing piece that they want the town to be looking at. You can kind of never communicate enough, is really what we hear quite a bit. Before I move to the youth session feedback, do we want to stop here for questions, or shall I continue? Okay so far? Okay. So I had a great, I think it was a morning, it was a morning session with a number of youth at the high school. So this group was a leadership group, a leadership class. We had about 12 participants. And so I started with giving them a sense of what a strategic plan is about, giving them a broad understanding of kind of the scope that goes into a strategic plan, and from there allowed them to work together to kind of figure out what would they want to see down the road, or even sooner rather than later, for their community that they live in with their families. And the other piece that came forward there too is across the hall, there's a teacher that also teaches a class that works more on social consciousness and some social themes as well with the youth. And they had recently done some projects where they were taking sort of a key theme that they felt was really important to them, developing out how they could make that an improvement here in Parry Sound, and what actual project they could bring forward to the community. So we went and had a look there and looked at some of the key things that came forward there. So that informed a little bit here what we hear from the youth. What's great about what we heard there is that is quite consistent from what we're hearing from the adults. So that's a good thing. They're talking about recreation centers. Obviously, that was sort of it was the number one thing that came forward right from pretty much the second I walked in, and even afterward when we came together and consolidated what they thought we wanted to bring forward, is this piece around really we need more things to do in Parry Sound, and how can we partner with for a recreation center and increase youth programming. Another piece for them, which is related obviously, is the piece around mental health supports. And if youth are feeling more engaged in the community, that will have obviously a positive impact in terms of their mental health and dealing with stress. Stress is one of the projects that was brought forward. Probably out of those projects I mentioned across the hall, there were at least 3 that were related to mental health. This is a key theme and a key topic that's very important to youth. And looking for ways to address that or to support them further is a big piece that came forward. Another piece that came forward too was the downtown area, being able to renovate and maybe provide some incentives for businesses to invest. We had a few youth that recognized that either through vandalism or anyone, that there have been moments of attempts to beautify either downtown or the waterfront that have they've been quite surprised and sad to see those things either vandalized or wrecked in some way, and hoping that they can bring the business together again as part of the pride in Parry Sound or find ways to incentivize businesses to renovate and to make downtown more beautiful and continue to invest in that area. So we talked about things to do, other things that came forward, and we heard this you'll see in the online survey as well, was we'd like to have more festivals, more events, more things to be proud of year-round, not just during the summer. Talked about downtown, improved access to healthcare. So they were quite keen in understanding or certainly aware that there's opportunity to have more doctors. They feel like they're waiting a long time. They hear from their parents that they're waiting at walk-in clinics, or they're not getting in as quickly as they'd like. And so the idea of supporting fundraising efforts to improve health services in Parry Sound, they thought maybe that was something that the town could support. Housing also came forward. There's certainly a recognition on the youth side as well of some of the disparities in the community between those who can afford and have housing and those that struggle a little bit more. They see it even within their own high school, what's happening economically as well. And so that was brought forward from them as in addition to some of these other pieces. We got into road maintenance, talking about some of the lines on the road fading too quickly. They were quite concerned about that. And the fact that there are more pizza restaurants than anything else, so they would like some more choice other than pizza from their restaurants. Any questions on the youth side? We'll continue. So the online survey, quite happy with the results here in terms of the number of respondents. It varies from community to community. Sometimes we only see 100, or depending on the size of the community, how many people will come forward. You had a good response rate of about 261 people. You'll see here I did a breakdown of where they came from, the majority coming from Parry Sound, and then a mix from some of the other municipalities around. Yeah. Is it normal to see a mix? I think in a community like this, yes. I don't think that would be uncommon to see. Yeah, I mean, the only way really to control that is if we shut it off to anybody outside, which we had chosen not to do. So just want to be clear, what's helpful here is to give you a sense of, the feedback that you're receiving tonight, where that came from, the individuals that have participated, so you're aware and have sort of the full picture of who has provided feedback to date. So I put in some graphs here that gives you an idea, again, of who responded to the survey. You'll see in terms of age ranges, we had 50% were between the ages of 30 and 49, and then another 15 from 50 to 59. So in terms of age of individuals that were involved in in terms of the online survey. Time lived in Parry Sound, 45% more than 20 years, and then add on another 18% or so, are 10 to 20 years. So you got quite a bit of feedback from people who have been in this area for quite a long time. So that's great to hear and see. Education level, you've got some higher education, either with post-secondary. Over 50% were with post-secondary education. And also with graduate degrees, that actually takes it up to close to 65. And income ranges, probably in the higher end, I would say here, in terms of over 60,000 was a good chunk of half-year respondents as well. From an employment standard, we kind of like to see are we looking at people who are employed, and what you can follow that in terms of your what you've got in your package there. So what do you enjoy? This question is, what do you enjoy most about living in Parry Sound? I don't think it's a surprise to anyone that it's your beautiful waterfront, your parks, your trails, your open spaces. That's the main attraction for people to be here. And then what falls behind, and there's obviously a big jump down then, is to proximity to family and friends, sense of community, and the location in terms of where it is. And then you've got a number of other options that are available there. The next question, the next series of slides here that you'll see is, we did ask, give us your top 3 priorities in terms of what you would like to see at the town of Parry Sound. So we pulled out what did people say for their number 1 priority, their number 2, number 3, and then we have a slide that sort of consolidates all together in terms of what came forward in general as number 1. So again, you can follow this. 34% are looking at local economy and growth and development as being very key issues as they come as number 1 for the community. Local, those two still remain, even when we look at what they said for number 2 and number 3 for priorities. We then now start seeing parks and recreation and public spaces. That was kind of 4th in line if you looked at number 1 priority just by itself. And then finally, the number of times a priority was selected as any of the top 3, then you can see again that the local economy is still number 1. That's still the number 1 thing on people's minds, along with growth and development. So we had a number of comments or a number of questions that allowed open field comments for people to add in on their own without being prompted in any way. And what we did was literally, I think I have it with me actually, we literally went through and read every single one, pulled out some key themes where we saw, pools and recreation center coming together. How many times are we seeing that being mentioned? How many times are we seeing some of these other pieces being mentioned? And Steph helped with that, so we could bring back to you the number of times a particular statement was brought forward or idea for the community was brought forward. And so you'll see overwhelmingly that the pool and recreation center is what everybody is dying to have here in your community. And we were provided, I believe, with the raw data just so you can look at that on your own time if you haven't already, to have an idea of what people are actually saying. So we don't want to spin any of this in any particular way, but really show you this is what the community is saying in their words, not in my words. So pool recreation, improve downtown with more diversified shopping. So like I said, you heard that from the youth, you're hearing that through the community as well. Waterfront development, housing, and additional community events and festivals. So this idea of really, part of it is the pride. The community events and festivals is not only something to do, but it's really, how do we showcase Parry Sound more? How can we, demonstrate our pride, show how great we are, bring people here, not send them out to other places, and have them enjoy what they've got right in front of them here. The other 4 topics, these sort of fell as the next 4 in line, not as high as the others, but they were still key themes. So putting it all together so far, what we've got are really, I would say, 3 areas of priority, if we were to sort of lump them together. And this is up to you now for, as we bring this forward, for you to talk about shortly around what do you think of these sort of three umbrella areas, for lack of a better way. They can be broken up. We're not stuck to 3 by any means, but this is what's come forward through the feedback to date. So growth, development, and housing. These are things, as we get into a little bit more detail, partnering to promote the town as an economic hub, partnering to advance waterfront development, looking at the possibility of, or the opportunity for amalgamation to possibly solve key problems. Is that something that we can bring forward? Looking at housing challenges, looking at, or continuing to ensure that replacing and updating old and failing infrastructure, thinking long-term, increasing public awareness of the projects that are going around, that are happening in terms of infrastructure, and advocating and supporting to attract post-secondary education in Parry Sound as well. That was conversation around Canadore College, but really we're talking about what can the town do, and under the town's purview really is how do we, what things can we do to attract and retain any post-secondary education in Parry Sound. Partnerships and quality of life. Again, this is increasing efficiency and promoting the area. There's some move-in ready land available, so how do we get moving on some of those projects? Improving active transportation, supporting the aging, increasing resiliency. So we did have some conversation as well around environment and climate change and what impact that's having, and making sure that the town is ready and is resilient to any climate change as well. And we talked about that youth program piece. Organizational excellence really boils down to 4 areas when we consolidate everything around ensuring the long-term financial sustainability. Of course, this has got to be a root piece in all of the planning that you do through your strategic plan, is what is really affordable for this community, and then looking at your current financial, your present financial situation, and how do we move forward realistically and prudently in making sure you give value per taxpayer's dollar, but are realistic in how you can do that. Two-way communication and enhancing internal teamwork and pride. So one piece that I speak to here in terms of internal teamwork and pride is a reminder that all of you in this room, of course, but also town staff are all communicators and champions on behalf of the town. So if your internal staff are feeling, I don't know, either left behind or they're not feeling that they're being communicated to or not up to date with what's happening and what decisions are being made, you're losing a major opportunity to help them promote how great the town is or even how well run it is, all of those things. So we want to make sure that that's a key piece considered as part of the strategic plan. So that's the consolidated, that's what we've heard to date. Now it's, we'd like to hear from you, unless there's some other questions before we break out into different groups.
Councilor McCann? Yep.
Thank you for the report. There's a lot of, it's nice to know, what people are thinking about and what they want, what their expectations are. There's nothing new or surprising here. I've seen it all and heard it all before.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate, and I respect this is what it is. It's a big wish list. The reality is we have a small tax base. Now, some of the items on here, I would imagine address to growing that tax base. But we're doing the best we can right now. I'm not sure what we can do to, improve our roads and our sidewalks more so, or even just the very basics. There's a lot of nice things here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm asking you, how have towns and municipalities done who were probably in a very similar situation? Where do they begin?
Yeah, thank you, through your worship. They're complicated issues because the people in this room have to make tough decisions on behalf of the community, right? You've been put in that position to do so, and they may not always be favorable. You're never going to please everybody. So we are working with some other municipalities that face, what the community considers as high taxes, and some feedback that it's not giving them enough value. That said, we do recommend having those tough conversations. At the same time, there's always that piece of enhanced communication. So we are seeing municipalities that are putting quite a bit more effort on improving how they communicate, how they share, how they are transparent, to make sure that there's no surprises to the community as these things are coming forward, that you are actually being quite honest and upfront with either the fiscal realities of what you face as a community, what are some of the barriers that are in the way to maybe making decisions that others that are popular from a quality of life standpoint that maybe just aren't realistic. So the other piece in terms of just even the communication piece is there's been a big shift in terms of how public engagement is done, and really putting a lot more concerted effort in terms of how you're reaching out to the community, going to where they are, bringing in new tools, that kind of thing, and what that does, again, back to kind of no surprises for the community, but it also makes sure that you've got as many open opportunities for people to provide feedback along the way, and that you're closing those feedback loops. And that you're sharing. I think the other piece in terms of that too is sharing the good news. What we hear, it's very common that we see municipalities that keep saying all we hear is bad news, and all the community is talking about is bad news. There are opportunities to share more of those good stories, and to develop a strategy where the town, again, sort of back to the employee pride piece, how do you get all of the individuals that work for the town and who do great work every day, how do you get that work in front of your community more? So, the snowplow driver, get on top of, handling some of that stuff. How do we start talking about all the planning that's going in now so that we're ready for the winter? And where the community is hearing and seeing firsthand for themselves the work that they do every single day, that's helping to combat some of the resistance perhaps that you get from the community. Is that helpful?
Somewhat. Thank you.
Somewhat.
Mr. Harris, you have something you want to add?
Yeah, maybe if I could just add, certainly reiterate communication, because there's a lot of things on that list I think that we do that people probably don't appreciate or don't understand. So communication is a big part of getting through that list, because there's a lot of things we do. But also, I think there's opportunities to look for ways to achieve positive results for a nominal investment. And I think the delegation tonight on the Founders Circle, the Parry Sound was the first one to put up $1,000. For $1,000, now we've got 32 founders, $32,000, and it's predominantly the business community, and they're taking economic development on and not asking the town to do it. They're putting their money and they're doing it themselves with the support of the town and some other agencies. So that's a big win, I think, for a modest investment on the part of the town. So we have to look for opportunities. I mean, it costs a lot to pave a road or resurface a road, and there's not much you can do about that. But in many other areas, it's finding those quick wins with a modest investment and picking the right ones.
Yeah, and further to that, I would say, because really what you're speaking to there is really leveraging a lot of influencers within your community. So you have a number of people who are engaged, who want to be engaged, and how do you take advantage of the energy and the passion that they have to move some of these things forward.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so should we begin now? So we can.
Sure. Okay, so in this piece, actually what I'll do is I'll put you into the three different groups. So if we could have Councillor Keith and Councillor Beckman together over here on this table, Councillor Horn and Councillor Burden here. Actually, we'll put the three, we'll save that for two. So if Councillor Horn and Burden could please go onto this table over here, we'll take a minute to stretch. And then Mayor McGarvey, Councillor McCann, and Councillor Bornman can go over to this side. Is that okay? Sure. So Councillor Keith and Councillor Beckman here. The other two, Councillors Horn and Burden here, and the remaining three over at this side. We're going to mix you up a little. You can bring a pen with you, that would be helpful. So choose a scribe, if you would. So what we've got here is you'll have in front of you 3 blank sheets of paper that just represent those 3 key themes that I spoke to earlier. If you would like to break out of those 3 themes, you're welcome to. Like I said, this is the feedback that's come from the public. This is your time to provide your own input. What I'd like you, and I've got up on the slide here in terms of considering in your discussion, there's a number of key things that you want to talk about. And one is to make sure what you're thinking of here in terms of priorities are things that are fiscally sustainable. We want you to think beyond the next 3 years, thinking long term. Looking at and thinking about what feedback that I've brought forward, where maybe some of the ideas that you've had, and all of you have come in with ideas when you started your term in terms of what you want to do to change the town or improve the town, enhance what's going on. Where does that align with maybe some of the feedback you've gotten from the public? And at the same time, when we have a strategic plan, obviously for it to be successful, we want to make sure there's some promises that what you've put into it are things that you can keep and report back on, so that are actionable. What I would ask for you in your conversations is we're going to try hard not to get too far into the weeds. So in this conversation, we want to stay relatively high level, like you've heard from the public. They did get into the weeds in some of their recommendations. That's not surprising. We often hear we just need, these, like the youth saying, we just need road maintenance and lines paved or lines on the road. We're not going to get down to that granular of a level. We'd like you to stay relatively high level. We can certainly track if there are certain things that come forward in your discussions that you want to make sure at least captured. We will capture them for sure. The other piece to keep in mind as we talk about this is, you may, any one of you, and certainly in the conversations, we heard people who are quite passionate about one thing or another. Because this is a full consultation process, we look at things that are key themes and things that keep coming back again and again. So projects that are brought up maybe once or twice may not make it into the strategic plan, obviously. So we keep in mind that at the end of the day, you will be able to vote into the strategic plan. You'll see what comes forward, but keep that in mind as well. So what I'll ask you to do here is take those pieces of paper, think about what you've heard from the public so far, and as you've said, none of it's really that surprising. You've heard these themes before. Where is it that you want to take? What are sort of key themes that come forward that are really important to you? And what do you want to see as priorities in the strategic plan that really is going to be your driving framework for the next 3 years of your term? So feel free to do it by the way that the topics are there, but if you would like to create a fourth or come forward and say, maybe we need 4, maybe we want to consolidate and have only 2, that's up to you. Any questions? So I'll give you about half an hour or so. We're already at almost 9. So we'll see where we're at in about a half an hour or so. Okay, so the way that we're going to do this, this part here is I will ask each group or each table to share, well, I think we'll do it theme by theme, so we can stay sort of focused in one area, and then we'll move to another area. One first question before we get into it, are we all comfortable with sort of these three kind of buckets of priorities as they're presented so far, with the organizational excellence, growth and development, and what was the third one? The partnerships and quality of life, I think it was. Did any group sort of want to either expand or change or break apart any of those? Yes.
Well, I guess the one thing I'd say, it seemed to us, and that partnerships, for example, all these three areas really, I will say, is more like a spider web. They're all interconnected. So this idea of, okay, it's fine and dandy to put it in three separate areas, but there's such a connection there. So whether you call both development, housing, and partnerships, because again, they interconnect, you know, we can accept that we're going to make it clearer by three sections, but in reality, that isn't how things are.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. Every piece will overlap with each other as you bring this together. What we try to do is at least organize it in a way that kind of makes sense and can at least kind of draw some a bit of an action plan then as you move forward. Yeah, thank you. Okay. What would you like to start with? How would your table, you get to present us with whatever you want to start with?
Okay.
Where did you have the most lively discussion?
Probably growth and development.
Growth and development?
So, growth and development and housing.
Okay.
So the first item was recreational complex.
Yep.
Partnership with area municipalities, First Nations. Partnership with federal and provincial governments. Do I need to slow down?
Yeah, so as we go through this feedback, maybe as a starting point, Your Worship, if you could, what are sort of the top three things that came through in your discussion? Let's try to simplify this.
We had the recreational complex, housing, and the waterfront.
Okay. And what specifically came through in, what was the first one you said? The
Recreational complex.
Recreational complex, that's,
So
I'm assuming that's, let's get it done?
Yeah, it's partnerships.
Partnerships?
Yeah.
Okay.
So with area municipalities, First Nations, and the federal and provincial governments.
So that was related to that specific.
Yeah. So it's also an opportunity for private sector investment.
Yes.
As well.
Okay.
So, and what does it do? Extending infrastructure will provide new areas for new development. Complex will provide extended opportunity for recreational programs for all ages. So further diversity. Provide incentives for new growth of housing that people want to locate here because of amenities. Also employees as well, and employers because of those amenities.
Right. Okay, so the story around the recreation center, we hear a number of themes that come forward out of that. One piece obviously being the partnership piece. The other piece is just in terms of economic development and growth, the opportunities that come out of it, not only for employment, but what it offers in terms of a draw for the community and something to be proud of for the community. And then the other piece you were talking about is just that recreational programming, what it does for quality of life.
Yep.
Yeah?
Yep.
Does that cover that?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So can you expand a little bit more on what came forward in your conversation about housing?
Housing, that the town supports housing across the housing spectrum.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay. And that the housing that supports the working population, whether it's rental, attainable rental, and attainable home ownership.
Okay.
And lobby the province to support attainable housing.
So another provincial piece in there as well.
Yeah.
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 Okay. long as we have key concepts in there, we'll be able to pull it out. So if there's anything that I repeat back to you that's
Yep.
incorrect, obviously, I'm hoping you will correct me and make sure that we capture this accurately.
You can have our scribbled notes too if you want.
Yes, we will take
Yeah.
those as well, to make sure.
So, the waterfront?
Yep.
So the waterfront, support development of brownfield properties.
Brownfield, okay.
Yeah. Redevelopment of OPPM in our property. And make sure our official plan and, we have official plan and zoning flexibility.
Good, okay. So which is good, we had some conversation at the senior management table around some work that's already going on around bylaws, and you're probably aware of that, the rezoning of some of those pieces. So that's great that work will continue, and that you see that as a priority as well.
And one sort of overarching thing is that upgrades to infrastructure or new development takes into mind climate change.
Yeah. Great. The climate change, I'm curious, we touched on it a little bit in the public consultations. Was that a theme that came forward in your tables as well? In terms of resiliency and
You think
okay, so we'll talk about that too.
down how low
That's
before.
great. Okay, so growth and development from this table.
I think
Is there something you want to add to what's here, or are there others that you want?
we had a lot of discussion about development of ready infrastructure, about the reduction of red tape in terms of development, duplication of services, which we see with the area planning board. The town has its own planning staff, but yeah, we still have to go to the area planning board. That's a duplication of service. So I think that slows down and doesn't necessarily attract development because of that process. We also talked about infrastructure in terms of the Saucing Swing Bridge, and that we definitely need the province and the federal government and area municipalities to come to a solution in terms of replacement of that swing bridge. I'm not repeating all that.
Roger will. No. Oops.
Oh, there we go.
I think as economic driver, the issue with the swing bridge is major importance to this area. We also talked about development and the utilization of the town-owned industrial park, and our EDO officer is obviously doing work towards that piece of land that we have. But I think the rest of it was covered.
Great. Anything you would like to add?
No, I got a strong voice.
All right, here we go.
In
So we're
reference,
talking- sorry, go ahead.
yes, in reference to economic development, we were looking at, we'd like to have a sustainability plan, a clear sustainability plan, so you can know how Parry Sound economically can grow, that we can measure it, there's objectives in it, and that anybody in public can also see that. If they look on the computer, they can see where we are. So there's a measurement each year, how are we doing?
So sorry,
yes.
just to clarify, so when you say sustainability plan, you're talking a financial sustainability plan or an economic growth sustainability plan?
We're looking at financial and economic. We want a real clear picture so we can therefore more easily balance budgets and be able to explain to others what it's costing and why we can do or what we can't do at this point in time.
Okay, so that feeds into, so we're talking a bit about reporting. We're also talking about the transparency piece that goes with
Yes.
that and improving the accountability of the town. Okay.
The other thing was to do with infrastructure, in reference to infrastructure development, we were looking at targeted investments, again, going back to plans, technology plan, revitalization, waterfront plan, but we'd like to have specific plans that are all going to be built in to our strategic plan. So you can easily look at the strategic plan, and from it you can see a section of where the infrastructure is, where our downtown revitalization. So each area that we are doing in the community, you can find it within that plan, and that's all part of your infrastructure. Even to the point of housing, you can see as part of infrastructure for your community.
Okay, so these pieces, so you're not talking about individual plans for each of those, but really reporting on where's the progress that we're making in terms of waterfront development, in terms of housing development, or are you suggesting?
We're suggesting both. We want separate plans, and then we want to be able to see how they are tying in. So we want everything dovetailing so that anybody looks, you got a clear idea. When you finish looking at this, you've got a clear idea what's going on. So there's no loops or spots being missed. We got it all dovetailed together.
Okay. So really this sense of where you're heading as a vision is well thought through because we've got this whole process in place.
Right, because we're looking at a long-term plan, like when it says beyond 3 years, ideally, I think personally, if we could get it up to, at the very minimum, 10 years, 25 years, looking way beyond the future, because I think that's what gets missed a lot of times. We get, as the comment was about the weeds, but it's still, we start zigzagging off, and you've got to have a long-range vision. So that was where we're looking at there, and why the necessity of all these plans. It may seem complicated, but it really would put everything together. And then the last area that we were looking for growth and development was had to do again with the housing, a variety of housings, but we're housing options, but zoning bylaws change. What accommodations can we do in this community to make housing work, so that we want a mix of population in neighborhoods?
Yep, okay. So I'll just add little things as I go, but you keep going. Okay, yeah, so building on the whole housing piece, we've talked about diversity, we're talking about different options that we need from housing, and how does the town look at ways to incentivize private developers to develop more? How do we get more options available, and how do we mix up the population so we've got something for everyone? Yeah. Anything critical that we missed on growth and development that you think needs to be added here? Do we feel pretty comfortable with what we're useful to get your notes? Well, some of this, and I mean, this is new for STEP. Some of this stuff has come forward, obviously, through the public consultation, so we'll be able to join that in. So that's great, and through what we talked about with senior staff. Yes.
I don't know if it's implicit there. Sorry. I don't know if it's implicit there or not, but we're not a developer.
Correct.
Or a real estate agent. We'll do our best to set the policies that allow these people, that it makes the private sector comfortable in investing here, but we're not likely to be investing a lot of public funds into this.
Agreed. Yeah, and so part of the exercise, certainly in the focus group sessions where I was able to sort of explain some of these things, is we did talk about, we got to make sure that we're sticking to things that the town can actually control, right? What is under your control. When you communicate back about this strategic plan, when it does come forward, and even when we get into the draft stage in January, that would definitely be a key message as part of what we're bringing forward. Is even in what we heard through the consultation, is the town can't fix all of those things. It's not part of the scope.
I think we both have a comment, but mine was maybe what needs to be put in there, and it goes along Councillor Borneman's line, is that the town is acting as a broker for development. Facilitate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Facilitate development.
Just to clarify that, we'd facilitate connection and realignment of business with economic development organizations, and then increase intensity of business retention and expansion strategies.
Yeah, and as you're talking about things, I mean, we had that comment earlier about, or the question earlier, about what do other communities do to kind of solve some of these problems. And it's not something the town can do on their own. Where you bring, you know, these key stakeholders to the table and help them solve problems. And we've got lots of hubs that are being created, IT hubs and housing hubs and all those kind of things, but they're together for a reason, because you want different voices at the table to help you solve challenging conversations, or challenging situations, problems. Okay, we okay to move on? Would you like to choose our next topic?
We talked about partnerships and quality of life as the next category. So in terms of
microphone.
In terms of partnerships and quality of life, we talked about the ongoing partnerships that exist and still can exist with service clubs, the business community, environmental groups, nonprofit agencies. And I think we are doing a really good job right now, but always can improve in terms of those relationships and partnerships to improve quality of life. And we're seeing that through the municipal and First Nations commitment towards the pool recreation center, plus also a number of activities in terms of development, which will only enhance quality of life. Employment opportunities because of that development is increasing right now and hopefully in the future.
Now, when you talked about the partnership piece, I mean, you brought in a number of different pieces of it. Did you talk about a nomination at all? Did you talk about how do you that relationship with other local municipalities in here?
Sure. I mean, we talked about shared services. I think that is occurring right now. Yeah. But as far as amalgamation goes, I mean, unless the province comes in and says, hey, you're doing this, which won't happen, I think we're on the road that, you know, staff work really well together with other municipal staff, and we are doing shared services. So I can only, you know, think that that will improve as all the municipalities try to save money in taxpayers' dollars.
Yeah. Yeah, perfect. Any further comments from this table on the partnerships and quality of life?
Yes, only a little bit. The one comment that Councillor Horn just made, I think that was already covered, but we also spoke of, again, the need for recreation plan and partnership. We want a specific, clear recreation plan for Parry Sound that's being part of, again, that you dovetail into your strategic plan so you can easily see that. And also a mobility plan for our community, because that takes into account our infrastructure, it takes into account accessibility issues. We're in a community with a large percentage of senior population, and we also have youth who want to be involved in activities, their mobility too. So, and that also takes in, again, your recreation plan. So that's why I said back at the beginning, I think many of these things really are really interconnected. And in trying to get a strategic plan that is easy for people to read so that they don't fall asleep at night is really important too.
Yes. I'm just gonna put down this interconnectivity of all to keep that as a key thing. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and that I think if I remember correctly, you guys talked about there is a recreation master plan, or that's in the works or is coming. So looking at ways that we can integrate all these plans and making sure that they're aligned under, you know, a common vision, like you said, under the strategic plan. Yeah. Great. Did this table have
things to add here?
So we had events. Okay, hit it harder. So we had events, winter light up the town, so for winter. We do light up the park, but I think there's some ideas that could be done that actually are much bigger. So supporting private sector events, you know, the Women's Weekend or downtown events, other events through the town, whether it's different organizations that are doing it. We can't afford to do every event and run all these events. I mean, it would be totally impossible. So, but there are ways that we can support other events. You know, we do support what was dragon boats at one time. The town did different things to support that. We now support, because Rotary does the rates tournament. So we support some things there as well. We can't afford and have the people to do that, but we can support the event in some particular way that makes it easier for volunteers or those service organizations or other organizations to run those events. And, you know, with that, taking a look at what is being capitalized within the community, who's coming to the community, where are they coming from, you know, which spreads more prosperity around to local businesses. The net zero community. So partnership with Lakeland Power Partners and the federal government. The net zero community is a system that they're designing through the town to take us off the grid. So we won't go off the grid, but we have an opportunity through solar and our water generation station to be able to produce enough power within the community with battery backup that we don't need outside power to do this. So it will green up the community, okay? So we're looking at, you know, something green, very green for the community. Plus it's local community sustainability as well. Plus it will save the ratepayers of this community money as well. Opportunities with...
Sorry, I just want to stop there for a second. So the net zero piece, we've certainly seen municipalities where that is a significant priority for the community, and they actually make that a goal and a target by a certain date that we will become net zero. I haven't heard that language or
It's
heard that talked about
about 5 years. About 5 years they're looking at.
Okay.
They'll be starting this spring to build. They've cleared the land for one of the solar arrays. Okay. So they will start building this spring from what I understand. So the federal government has stepped up with a significant amount of money on this project as well. So they want it to go ahead too.
And has town or council, is this an area we want to push in terms of the community as a whole as being something that Parry Sound can say we are?
We would be the only community in Canada.
You would be?
Yes,
Yeah.
like this. It should be a push.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Yeah. So other was opportunities with municipalities or other partners to purchase supplies and equipment.
Yes.
Okay.
Purchasing supplies. Yep.
Okay. Opportunities with area municipalities and other organizations for marketing, tourism opportunities, and recreation.
Yeah.
And that's what we had under that.
Great. That's good. All of that consistent with what we heard. Okay. So let's move to the last one. Or do we have a hard stop at 10? Or that depends on.
We have to stop at 10.
Okay.
Or you can, by majority.
By majority, we can extend it, yeah.
Okay. I mean, we can get through organizational excellence. I'm just thinking of the other piece around values and things.
I would say if it gets to 10:58, well, then we need to,
9:58.
sorry, 9:58? Yeah. Sorry. We get to 9:58, we better have a resolution to...
Yeah, fair. Thank you. Organizational excellence, there's not usually as much encompassed there, but if this group can start us off with where your thoughts were here, please.
Yeah, there's only three here. Clear communication to the microphone. Clear communication to the public regarding the sustainability and how we are meeting our goal.
So this is back to your sustainability plan.
Yes,
Yeah.
we want clear communication so we can be measured
Yeah.
and where we are. We want, I think we've mentioned, again, the interconnection, which was increase efficiencies in administration and our shared services.
And anything specific there when you say increase our efficiencies in administration? Is there anything in particular that comes to mind there? Or?
I think we can do better everywhere. If we can keep trying to do a little bit better, we're only going to improve all our services,
yeah.
Right? We're never satisfied. The last part would be better recognition of employees' attributes at all levels in the organization and the goals that they have. And the reason why we're saying that is it increases the morale, and it also causes to have not only the employees to have more pride in their organization, but they're more pride in their community. And when they have more pride in their community, then they're not saying things, oh, I'll only live in Parry Sound. They're saying Parry Sound is the greatest place to be, and this is the best place to work. So it's good marketing of our community and the quality of life. So I think this is an area that we can really work on too.
And when you say, define what you mean by employee attributes.
Well, the attributes would be, you may have somebody who, for example, is really good at volunteering to help with those extras. They're not a task that's been assigned, but they're really good at doing that. Yes, yes, and giving that recognition, employees like that, and that is often more important. I'll just speak from my own observations than something like perhaps a pin. You know, people like to have their picture taken and saying how they did a grand job, and it's probably sometimes cheaper.
Excellent. So part of that is just telling the story of your employees a little bit more. Yeah, great. Further comments?
I think in terms of organizational excellence, it's defined by employee engagement and the value that they see in working for the town of Parry Sound. And that engagement can come in many different forms in terms of training opportunities, educational opportunities, leadership development. So I think employee engagement is key. Also the value of why we're here. We're here for the residents and the taxpayers of the town of Parry Sound. So what is the value in terms of their tax dollars and the services that are rendered?
Yeah, and aligning them around that kind of vision of what brings us all together as town employees. Thank you. Further comments?
So we had look at all aspects of communication.
Yeah, okay. Microphone. Nope.
There we go. Got to press real hard on that. What are you doing to this button over here?
I was just going to say, don't break that.
So for under organizational excellence, we had look at all aspects of communication with the public, what is working and what is not, and a communications person. I think that sometimes the different departments, given the workload that they have, it's a little challenging to try and get that communication piece out because they're trying to work within what they're doing, and we need somebody, I think, and we had looked at this before, that is able to pull all that together and communicate with the public as well. That I just think we need that dialogue and we need it open, and we need to make sure that it's someone is dealing with it, and then things can be directed to the different departments, but the departments can come into that one person and disseminate the information.
So are you talking, so there's two things that I heard there. One piece is around the communication, telling the town story, and having a way of two-way engagement.
Yep.
The other piece I'm hearing is a little bit of a sort of customer service, almost,
Yep.
for lack of a better word, call center, central person to come through to
Exactly.
flow conversations.
Yeah.
Two
Keep
slightly-
that person
two
busy.
slightly different things.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other is fiscal responsibility.
Yeah.
Next was design of future infrastructure to consider the town's population. Okay.
In terms of being prepared for growth.
Prepared for growth, prepared for physical abilities,
Yes.
prepared for age.
Yes.
Okay. So a variety of different aspects to look at how that infrastructure is created based on our population that we have.
Projections.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Next was staff training and employee pride.
Great. Anything further missing from any of these areas that we want to make sure is captured? You know, we're seeing obviously a lot of great things that that go along with what we've heard at all the other consultations, so that's always a good sign. We don't have council going off to other directions from what we're hearing from the public. Yes.
Sorry, just one thing I forgot to mention was in terms of having a defined succession planning for employees.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's so excellent. Wonderful. So, so from here, in recognition of time as well, the idea is that we will take these back. What you'll probably see in the overarching strategic plan is that we'll likely keep to these three types of priorities, and then blow them out a little bit in terms of what they mean, and follow some of the pieces here. We'll align this with some of the wording and some of the stuff that we've heard, and so I think the motion before you is to, I don't have it in front of me. You have it there? Is to allow Red Brick to take this back and do that work for you in January. Yes.
When I noticed succession planning is down there, the one thing that I noticed isn't once you put succession planning up down there, I think we should really have exit interviewing also, because it seems to me that's really important. When people leave, we should know why, because that helps us with the whole organization. Thank you.
Is there anything, just before we do that last piece, is there anything that anybody is vehemently against? What do we have up here? Do we have some consensus that these are kind of the right things, we're headed in the right direction here? Seeing none. Mayor McGarvey, please.
Okay, so may I have a mover and seconder for the direction? Councillor Keith and Councillor Bachman. That upon receipt of feedback from the public consultation process and with the input provided by council at its December 17th meeting, that Red Brick Communications be directed to produce the strategic plan 2020-2022 for the January 21st, 2020 council meeting for approval. Discussion? All in favor? That's carried. I'd like to thank council and staff for all of their efforts and for being here tonight as well so that we could do this, and to Red Brick Communications for being here as well and working on the plan, and we look forward to the results. So, moved by Councillor Burden, seconded by Councillor McCann, the bylaw number 2019-7002, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? It's carried. Moved by Councillor McCann, seconded by Councillor Burden, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. All in favor? And that's carried. So, prior to adjourning, I'd like to offer the following information to the public regarding the next council meeting, and I appreciate that there's people that stuck through this whole process to the very end. Thank you very much. The next regular meeting of council for the town of Parry Sound is scheduled for Tuesday, January 21st, 2020 at 7 p.m. and will be held in the council chambers, top floor of 52 Seguin Street. Public access to the building is off Gibson Street. All regular council meetings are held at 7 p.m. on the first and third Tuesday of each month, except January and August, where only one regular meeting is scheduled. Regular and special meetings are now live streamed. Please check news and public notices on our website at www.parrysound.ca for instructions to watch live or to see earlier council meetings. Prior to a council meeting, agendas, changes to the council meeting schedule, and notices of special council meetings are posted on the town's website at www.parrysound.ca under news and public notices. You can view an electronic copy of the complete agenda with supporting reports on the town's website. Search council calendar and the date of the meeting. Contact the town clerk or make a request through our website if you wish to receive combined agenda via email. The minutes of the council meetings are posted within 2 days after the council meeting on the town's website. Your TV airs council meetings on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. following a regular council meeting. For Cogeco listings, contact www.yourtv.tv. The municipal office will be closed over the holiday season from Tuesday, December the 24th to January the 1st inclusive. And don't forget to come to the mayor's annual New Year's levy on Sunday, January 5th, 2020 at 12 noon at the Bobby Orr Community Center. So thank you, everyone. Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night.